special meeting today, August 27th, for the Bloomington Urban Enterprise Association. We're really excited. We have a special presentation today, so thanks everybody for coming out and dealing with the heat and the students learning to drive in Bloomington, so we appreciate that. So we do need to start with a roll call this morning, so Virginia, we'll start with you.
Here.
Present.
Yes, present, and I survive in the students. I'm a professor, so it's good. Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
All right.
Chris Cocker here. Blake Hooper.
Mary Morgan.
Heather Robinson.
Phil Emerson.
Jane Cooper Smith.
Kate Rosenbarger.
Dee
Dolorosa.
Matthew Brooks.
Holly Warren.
Caleb Brown.
And online.
And online?
Elisa Spinelli.
Alex, you want me to get a hey?
Yes, and Alex Pratt from Nico. Hi.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So we have one item to vote on today. Sorry. Did I miss someone?
No.
Oh, okay.
We're good.
One item to vote on the approval of minutes from our meeting on August 14th. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Blake, second.
Second.
Virginia, all of those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes pass. All right, so Dee, do you want to introduce Matthew and tell us, or Matthew, introduce yourself, or whatever works?
Well, I set this up.
Yeah, for sure. I'm an MPA student at O'Neill IU. I've been at Bloomington for over a year now, so it's pretty exciting to, be here and be part of this. I have a background in economics and political theory stuff, so this project, discovering it was really cool. Being part of this department has been great. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we are excited to see your presentation.
All right. Take it away, sir.
Sweet, yeah. So actually, before I dive into it, I want to say thank you for taking the time today and coming out of your way for this. And also, we only discovered this initially because of the work the BVA was doing in terms of the resident child care grant. I was calling around to local child care providers in Bloomington, and they were saying either their students don't need the grant because they make too much money, or they make so little, their households make so little that the state provides free child care.
Can you back the frame up it even more? And
Sure.
So just for newer members, the BVA used to have a zone resident child care grant. We knew that child care was a gap in our community. And so the BVA created a child care grant program. It wasn't getting utilized. And so Dee cut Matthew loose to evaluate what's happening in this market. Why aren't these grants getting picked up? And so that's where he kind of stepped in.
Yeah, exactly. And in looking through that and talking to people, I realized, there's maybe some big missing middle in the downtown in Bloomington of residents in terms of their household income. So here we are. Take it away, yeah, thanks.
All right.
Okay, so before we even get into the impacts of it and how it relates to Bloomington specifically, I have an overview of income inequality in America at large and just the premise of income inequality. So, also at any point, if people want to stop and ask questions, especially as we set up the model here, please feel free. So right away, the chart that I especially want you to pay attention to is the second one there, which compares aggregate income, breaking the U.S. into thirds. And you can see between 1970 and 2018, a fairly large time gap, to be fair. Middle income goes from 62% to only 43% of aggregate U.S. income, while upper income goes from 29 to 48%, and lower income stays roughly the same. So in this time frame, you see the U.S. wealth is shifting to this upper third category.
Matthew, sorry, question already.
Yeah.
On that chart, so the income then, it's a share of wealth. So it's not individual humans. Individual humans are not joining the upper class, but it's the wealth is held.
Distribution of wealth.
Yeah.
The distribution of wealth in that year that's earned. There's a separate, I don't know if I put it in here, of just the wealth specifically, and it's much more stark. The upper income is more likely to save the wealth that they earn, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. So as income earned in a given year shifts more to wealthier individuals, they're also more likely to save it, and the wealth disparity grows. But our main focus is income inequality as opposed to wealth inequality. Great. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so you see upper income, their share of the U.S. wealth went from 60 to 79, and the middle and bottom third of the income distribution both shrank. And this plays out in historical, racial, and ethnic divides. You see white household income is able to somewhat grow over this time, mostly remain stagnant, but you see there's some thick disparities between white households, multiple race households, Hispanic, and black non-Hispanic. And also to note too is black non-Hispanic and Hispanic are both below $50,000. Okay, so does anyone have any questions before we dive into the impacts of it all? Cool. So Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis says that no progress has been made in reducing income and wealth inequalities between black and white households in the last 70 years. Close to half of all American households have less wealth today in real terms than the median household had in 1970. Okay, so this is our measure of income inequality. This is what the census uses in the American Community Survey. It's called the Gini coefficient. It's a little bit weird, but basically an economy doesn't do well if there is perfect equality. That is, regardless of what job you have, you make the same amount of money. So that's 0 on the left side, perfect equality. Perfect inequality is everybody works, but one person makes all the money and everyone else makes nothing. So that would be perfect inequality. So you need some inequality, but the measure of it determines whether or not the economy is healthy. A healthy range is 0.3 to 0.4. So anything above 0.4, below 0.3, that's where the economy starts to do pretty wonky stuff.
Is Gini an acronym?
I actually don't know. Offhand.
Yeah, I don't think we've
That's
ever
actually,
seen it
yeah.
written out. We've only seen it referred to it as
It's
that.
gotta be someone's name is
That's
never
such a funny
capitalized.
question.
Yeah, it's got to be someone's name.
I never thought about that.
Well, we'll do our research on that. Sorry about that.
Yeah. And so the one on the right there is the important one again, where you see the U.S.'s Gini coefficient is well above that, what's considered a healthy range for economic growth at 0.434, and it's also the highest of G7, which are some of the largest economies and Western economies in the world. And all of those economies are within the 0.3 to 0.4 range. And while some inequality is inevitable in a market-based economic system as a result of differences in talent, effort, luck, excessive inequality erodes social cohesion, leads to political polarization, and ultimately lower economic growth.
So this is from 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Differences in talent, effort, and luck. I think if we were writing this statement in 2024, we would include like systemic
Oh, yeah.
racism, whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
different inequities.
Great. So why would a high level of income inequality impede economic growth? So there's the first thing is the demand drag. This is one of the most impactful elements of income inequality. Whereas higher income households have much higher savings rates than low and middle income households. Think of if a low income household received some kind of stipend, they're more likely to spend it within a given month than a high income household who's more likely to take that stipend and invest it or save it. So as the dollars transfer from the bottom and middle to the top of the income distribution, less of it is spent and more of it is saved. Additionally, high-income households are more likely to spend what they do have outside of the local region. That could be on tourism or like goods from far abroad, other parts of the country. And the demand drag imposed each year by rising inequality is equivalent to the peak boost to the economic demand provided by the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which was $787 billion in stimulus. And to offset that hit in demand posed by rising inequality in America, we need to enact that policy each and every year.
Sorry, I keep adding the color commentary, but that's from the 2008
Yes.
collapse. So that was the Fed's response at that time.
Yep.
In case you don't remember the name of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And between 1985 and 2005, inequality increased by more than 2 Gini points on average across 19 OECD countries. That's basically the developed countries in the world. That's Western Europe, North America, Australia, some Eastern Asian countries. Had inequality not changed in those countries in that time frame, the average OECD country would have grown by nearly 33%. The negative impact of income inequality on growth is determined by the bottom 40% of earners, and we're going to get more into that later. So another way that income inequality hurts economic growth is it hurts small businesses. Higher income inequality leads to more household savings flowing into stocks and bonds, which are mostly used for financing by larger firms rather than into bank deposits. In turn, smaller businesses depend on banks for financing. Their funding becomes more costly and they create fewer jobs. And then entrepreneurship as well. New firm creation decrease income inequality due to profound impacts on regional economies. So if we have a lot of entrepreneurship happening in a small town, we'll likely see lower levels of income inequality than a town with less entrepreneurship. And that's because the new firm formation induces economic growth, which further leads to poverty reduction, improving living standards for the poorest. So if we have a lot of small businesses forming, they're creating jobs in our area, they're spending money in the area, and those jobs then employ other people to spend money at other local businesses, so on and so forth. It creates like a positive feedback loop. All right, one other, did you?
Did I skip one?
Maybe not. Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Oh, I'll figure it out. I might have mixed up the slides. So one other impact is pandemic resilience. Each percentage point in income in Gini index was associated with a 9% increase in COVID-19 infection rate and a 14% increase in the death rate due to COVID-19. If we have friends, we are less likely to contact a common cold infection in randomized control trials. If we have a difficult relationship with our spouses or partners, we heal more slowly in trials of experimental wound healing. So this gets to how income inequality can cause divisions within a community and makes it harder to build like a cohesive culture in an area. And you'll see this across, I picked out pandemic resilience because that feels especially pertinent nowadays, but you can look at things such as obesity or drug use, and I'm blanking on some of the others. There's a lot of health effects that just having a stronger culture diminishes in a way you wouldn't expect. So then this starts to get us to where we're going. So as I was looking this up, I saw this article from 2011, so it's been a while, and it was ranking the 21 most unequal cities in America. You'll see the picture there, party in Miami Beach, that's what I was picturing, like New York, Miami, LA, that kind of a thing. But number 1 in 2011 in the country in income inequality was Bloomington, Indiana, where our wealthiest 20% of people made 61-ish% of the income, with our top 5% making almost 30%. So income inequality in Bloomington. Does anyone have any questions before we move on?
So that, can you go back to the previous slide? That income, that number 1, that is based on the Gini index of every city in North America, in America.
In the US,
in
yeah.
the United States.
Yeah, and Puerto Rico.
Are students included then?
Yes, yeah, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so income inequality in Bloomington. So we charted it. So you'll see we have Gini index on the bottom there, but on the vertical axis, one of the critiques of the Gini index is income inequality doesn't capture the whole picture, because if there's a large amount of income inequality but it's cheap to buy everything, then in effect there isn't really that detrimental inequality. So I thought, okay, shoot, I discovered Bloomington has this high level of income inequality. I already told you and raised the alarm bells, but does it really matter? And it turns out actually Bloomington is also the worst of the cities that we charted there in Indiana in both metrics, and quite substantially so. So on the vertical axis there, that's the average percentage of household income on rent and utilities and fuel combined. And Bloomington is the highest in that metric. And then in terms of the income inequality, remember the healthy range was 0.3 to 0.4. Bloomington's is somewhere around 0.53.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you included college towns.
Yeah, and
So-
there's a chart of just college towns in the US too.
Phil,
Phil had a
do you have a question?
Yeah.
Did you happen to look, I'm wondering how much of this is related to Uber wealth, and did you happen to look at Columbus, for example?
Ohio or Indiana.
Columbus, Indiana, yeah.
Are they?
I did yesterday, actually, and Carmel was close to Bloomington, and
Yeah.
Columbus, I think, was close but slightly lower. But that's just going from my memory.
Yeah,
so.
that would be,
Yeah,
that's part of the,
sure.
Mhm.
But this is also just
But that
a
was
metric
just
of,
Jeannie.
yeah, this is just a metric of income though. So we had a question, someone in our department was, well, if Bloomington has one billionaire, does that just throw everything off? But in effect, the billionaire isn't earning whatever $1 billion every year, they're sitting on $1 billion. So actually, their income, in some cases, you'll see billionaires make nothing in a year, and they could actually be reducing the Gini index. So it gets a little finicky when you start to consider the uber wealthy, but if you go to the next.
by the way, the Gini index is an old index.
Mm-hmm.
It was an Italian sociologist who wasn't a very nice guy. He was a fascist, but I think he died in the mid-60s. Anyway,
Sure.
I'll show you later.
Yeah, I appreciate your knowledge of the Gini index. Yeah, so this is just a sample of college towns. I took some of it from a housing survey that Bloomington did, so I included all the college towns that we compared ourselves to previously, and then I added a bunch more just to look at. And you'll notice once again, a lot of cities in the US, especially college towns, do have a higher level of Gini index than that healthy range, but at the exact same time, Bloomington is still a severe outlier there. The only city worse on both metrics than Bloomington in all of the cities that I surveyed was Boulder, Colorado. Yeah. And then, do you want to move the,
Bloomington's
yeah,
looking, yeah,
we're
sorry.
way up there, so it's covered by the,
Over here.
yeah, that works. And so then this is every single city combined, and then a few other large cities that I added, including like New York and Miami, which Bloomington is worse than both New York and Miami in both metrics. Yeah, and the other thing you'll notice too is a lot of areas that have seen a large amount of economic growth in the past decade or so are all cities that are on like this back half of the Gini index, which includes like Provo, Orem, which is pretty well cut off there, or Kokomo, Grand Rapids, Fort Wayne, Minneapolis. Yeah.
Where's Minneapolis? Sorry.
It's
Oh,
the
I see
red,
it. It's
yeah.
kind of hard to see by Elkhart. Is that-
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Cool. So this housing costs in Monroe County, so beyond even just the metric that we used, which was the percentage of household income in Bloomington that's spent on rent and utilities, this takes it a step further with 31% of Monroe County residents are 50% of the area median income, which is their severely housing cost burdened, consistently spending 50% of their income on housing. The number of severely cost burdened households in Monroe County jumps to 82% when their income is at 30% AMI or less, which is, as we saw with the Gini index, a significant percentage of people. And then this is a little BUEA overview. It's kind of a lot to look at, but the things that I'd like to point out is we have in the center there, the unemployment rate in that bubble is at 2.9%. But if you look at the top right, our median household income is only $28,000.
So 2.9 tracks with the number that the feds just released this month,
Mhm.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
It's for current, when was the measure taken?
I believe this is 2022.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry. And-
Or, oh, maybe 2024
Okay.
actually.
Yeah.
Good.
Sweet.
Can you go back?
Sure.
There's just a lot on this.
It is a
Absolutely.
lot,
Mhm.
yeah.
So you wanted to highlight,
The low unemployment rate compared to the also low median household income.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people working and at the same time, they're
not
not
making
making
it.
anything.
Why is the population so low? I thought we had 82,000.
This is
Oh,
just the
Just the
UVA.
UVA, yeah.
And so the
Yes.
population's, 11 and change.
Yeah.
What, can you talk about just median disposable income versus median household? You know what gets peeled out?
I actually am not sure how they split those up, but I can figure that out and get
It's
back to you.
And then median age is interesting
Mhm.
too. I wonder how that compares to our city
Right.
overall and how that's
Mhm.
impacted by students.
Right.
And there's gonna be a drastic shift in our age demographic in the next few years as we have a lot of people like, I think I believe like the retirement age, like 65 and over, like increases by like something like 1,000 people or something in the next like
Right, yeah.
year or two or something.
Yep.
So, I mean, we'll have a drastic shift in our older population.
But I don't think those folks are all gonna be in the BUEA.
No, no.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, with the student housing complexes
Mhm.
clustered in there, that's probably gonna be consistently lower than the whole city or the
Sure.
county.
I think we'd love to see in Hopewell, some senior living happening there, which would be in the enterprise zone.
So Matthew, am I misreading? I think I've got this. 63% of the jobs located in the district are white collar, but
Yes.
those are not residents necessarily.
No, you do have to consider that the BUEA holds the trades district. There's some
Then-
specific jobs, like areas of jobs that are white collar, but not everyone within the trades district lives
Exactly,
within the
exactly.
BUEA.
Exactly.
Well, and think about Catalan, which is our
Yeah.
second largest employer in the city,
Also,
and they
yeah.
have an enormous part of their staff is white collar,
Mhm.
science, lab people, and then another large part is manufacturing, so.
Well, in education and government too, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, then you go to the question of the income for white collar jobs. That has to be explained somehow by capturing different groups there.
Well,
Or
there's
else we're
not-
paying our white collar positions.
How many jobs
Here's
are
this,
there?
here's some information. So the white collar, this is employment in the zone, but it's
Exactly,
not
yeah.
correlated necessarily to the population
was-
living here.
yeah, that's
So
what
at
I
the
was trying to
city,
ask,
only 28% of city staff, for example, lives in city limits.
Wow.
Catalan, the number we used to have was 52% of the workforce commuted into the site from outside of Monroe County.
Wow.
So, yeah, by those two data points, I'm thinking there's a big discrepancy.
And Jane, is your hunch that that's related to housing costs? Or-
Yes, yeah.
And lack of housing as well. Like,
Yeah.
Lack of availability.
lack of availability.
I think
Okay.
it's definitely,
Yeah,
I
the
mean.
combination of the two.
But even the Catalan, and this is anecdotal, when I worked there for a hot second, talking to engineers, like young engineers, recent Purdue grads who were coming up in their careers and doing really well, the math just didn't work out for them to live in Bloomington. They
Yeah.
could afford to purchase a house here, but it wasn't what they were willing to do for their personal finances.
Yes.
Well, and I think you have to also consider culture, if I could use that, being a college town. I mean, even though there's diversity here, not just on obviously black and white race, but holistic diversity because it's a college town. It is a college town. So even several of my colleagues refuse to live in Bloomington because it is a college town. So I don't know how much that's a consideration for this, but I think that's something also to consider when people aren't living here.
Thanks for pausing there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can go back, so I've got the mission statement here, and then we have a few slides with different ideas on what we can do, but does anyone want to go back and look at any charts or anything more? Okay, great. Yeah, well, our mission, provide the means to improve the economic, physical, and social environment for the zone residents and businesses.
Yeah.
So the first thing is a double dividend. So one of the ways that we can remedy the effects of income inequality is with a direct stimulus to zone residents that could either be spent specifically in the zone or just in Bloomington at large. Part of the issue that we see when income shifts from that bottom third to that top third is more of it is saved, and because of that, like if you look at Bloomington alone in the downtown, if more of that income is being saved, then less of it's being spent on our local businesses. So then local businesses suffer. So one of the ways to undo that is to directly give money to that bottom third or middle third to then spend in the downtown. And on top of that, we could pursue something like a downtown debit card. The next idea is we could develop the social capital in our downtown. One of the remedies for the cost of income inequality that I've seen is developing social capital. If we have a more tight-knit culture and have people who interact with their neighbors more, know their neighbors a little bit better, we also see higher rates of things such as entrepreneurship, lower costs in communication when it comes to business development, and lots of other things that I can get into. But one thought is if we pursue this local investment route, either in what was listed before, some of the ways coming, we could look at a program such as the Head Start program, which has been known to increase things beyond just economic well-being, but also voter turnout rate, engagement in local community affairs, and that kind of thing, by creating these boards for residents in the downtown that they could serve on, and then have a set of funds, possibly from the BUEA, to choose what to do with. That grants a good amount of authority and diminishes paternalism to downtown residents, that they can decide, oh, we know kind of what's going on and what's best for our little sliver of the BUEA, so let's figure out something to do with that. Another thought is a matching program for local nonprofits. Once again, creating this concept of people in the downtown coming together to like work on downtown projects, and having this sense of authority and self-determination over what they pursue. Social infrastructure in general, that could be, we could look at areas of the downtown where people are not interacting with each other to the degree that we prefer, where we have gaps in parks or sidewalks, or just communal spaces that you can occupy for free and not be charged with loitering. And then youth programming, so if we can develop a way to facilitate communication between young people, not college students, but high school students. It could be college students, I guess, but high school students, middle school students, to once again build this more cohesive culture across Bloomington, or specifically in the downtown, that could pay dividends long term if they make one friend that gives them this idea to do this thing, to do that. Yeah, cool. And then, so if we're looking more at how recessions impact income inequality, we see it's really bad. Recessions, the first jobs that are lost are usually the lowest on the totem pole, and that further exacerbates income inequality. So one thing we could do is look at ways to help recession-proof the BUEA. We're not gonna like stop a recession in the BUEA, but we can make it less detrimental to the folks who live there. And so one idea is an urban wealth fund. This is basically a fund that the BUEA could put together that could be triggered when a recession is triggered to be directly invested into individuals or into small businesses in the BUEA. And on top of that is we could pursue an endowment, which we can get into a lot more in a bit, and how that helps the BUEA weather storms as well.
Questions so far?
I think that's
that
it.
might be the last
Yeah.
slide.
Great.
make this deck available?
Yes, yeah.
It is in the packet.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm pretty sure that I put the right version of it, so I will double check that and make sure that I don't have to amend that, but yeah.
One social capital idea that I've seen in some cities, most impressively was in Vancouver, BC. They hold salons, I don't know better language for it, in back rooms of restaurants or bars once a month. A very simple 30 to 40 people, corporate leaders, and in this, there are other places it's done in different ways, but in Vancouver, they have a speaker who has 6 minutes to speak, and the rest of the time is just folks connecting. And it was amazing the number of new initiatives that popped out of that. A young woman started a school because she believed you could teach people anything they needed to know in 90 minutes. And so she would get experts in the community to come and teach that class, auto repair. And when you come to the end of that, if you want to know more, then there'll be another class later. But I watched this room just come alive with like 40 people all making connections. And there were folks from the community foundation, folks from the hospital, but also a lot of the genuine articles. And it was that simple. It was just once a month, let's host these gatherings. And I think at the time they had 5 of them going across Vancouver. So, and by the way, street people involved as well. Folks working with their own recovery. Cops who got to know them there. So yeah, I've said too much, but
You did an excellent job. I resonate with so many characters of your of this presentation. I can feel all different areas of it. So this will help so many people in so many areas. So great job.
Yeah, and I think just echoing what Felisa said, just understanding the variables. I think we have a pretty good hunch about what makes it challenging to live here right now, but this is irrefutable. It's in the data, and I think what really resonates with me is just the fabric of our community. We know that the middle class it's not there, and we know that when our community becomes imbalanced, the fabric becomes weaker, and I think you can feel this shift that has taken place since I moved here in 2002.
I may have missed it in the material, but do we know what percentages of the residences in the district are owned by persons outside Monroe County?
Rentals versus like home ownership?
Yeah, although that's
Non-local.
non-local ownership, it
Non-local
makes it
ownership.
tricky. I mean, it is. Chris
Non-local
probably
ownership
can
of
tell
our
us.
rentals? Is that what he's asking?
Yeah.
Most of them, I think it's like 67% live around here, of our rentals. So it's like a wildly high percentage of people, we have like small landlords that live here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Jackie Scanlon presented that one time at council, I forget the data, but she has it, yeah.
So we consider that a good
The
rate.
Small
So
businesses,
yeah.
they're almost like your own small businesses.
Yeah.
You know?
So I have a question on I appreciate your presentation as well, and on your, I can't remember which slide it was, but it was one talking about, I think re-energizing people to spend downtown. A question, just hypothetically speaking, is there an education component that you also, I guess, had considered, or, I mean, not that you want someone to have to sit through some doldrum, lecture about, but I'm just saying if the opportunity were to save or spend, some people might get hip to let me save. So I guess I'm wondering how that's presented. Is it a voucher that's specifically like businesses will be part of this thing, and if the business name is on here, they can spend it there? Or will it be a certain amount of cash, kind of like the what was that thing called that the federal government gave? Some people got the stimulus, I guess it was, okay, stimulus. Or is it like, you just drop some money in somebody's bank account and then they can spend it all at the liquor store or, or save it? I'm just trying to figure out what your thoughts are around, that.
We've discussed this a little bit. It's like, okay, spend or save, but at the same time, like, saving's not bad because they might be saving up to like pursue some more education in an area, or maybe they are saving up to get like their tooth fixed, so there's,
That's right.
we want kind of both, but there is a delicate kind of balance there because you do need for them to spend their money. If they're spending a large amount of money at once, that's great too. It's just the period of time that they're holding on to the money is what we're kind of concerned about. Whereas like if you have someone with a lot of money, they're going to hold on to that money for a much longer period of time than someone who has limited resources because they need to spend the money. So yeah, it's a pretty delicate balance. Sorry, I just took that for a minute.
No, that was great. Yeah, actually, to even build on that, if you're just looking at it from like the pure business sense, the downtown workers are being made to be artificially inefficient because they might have everything in their power and capabilities to pursue a higher education or to pursue a new trade or to go get whatever surgery that they might need to let their bodies be healthy again, and actively are being denied that by artificially low incomes.
Is this available in narrative form, a written report of any kind?
That is what we're in the midst of now, yeah.
Because I'm just thinking about propagating this information to other
Matthew's
people.
actually working on an executive summary of this.
Okay,
right now.
fantastic. And would you also be available for other boards or entities to give a presentation?
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent.
I knew you'd love this. Yeah, it's funny because it's been like, great work, or no, this is great. Well, it's not great,
It's
but
not
this
great.
is great. It's hard because like it's phenomenal work that Matthew's done for us to putting all this information together and trying to let people really know what's going. Everybody knows that it's bad, but they don't necessarily know why. So if you can put the data behind it and be like, these are the reasons, now we can figure out the ways to try and fix it. And all of Matthew's remedies are like, this is a list of things that we could potentially do. There are more solutions out there, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
But just getting the conversation going about what we can do as this group and as other groups and as the city of Bloomington we need to save ourselves because we're capable of it. And I think that there are plenty of people in this city, not only like in City Hall, but in the city that are capable of doing this. So.
And I just want to, thanks Dee. I want to also say on the potential remedies section, those are things that have been seen in other communities. Those are not formal recommendations from the city of Bloomington to the BUEA.
Yeah.
They're just, that's not where they are yet.
This is a list of ideas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and excellent. Thank you so much, Matthew. Just really eye-opening in a lot of ways. I think a lot of us kind of know this, we read, and then we see the data, and it's just really powerful. And so I know as an organization and as a board, we're looking to do some strategic planning, and I think that presentations like this really inform that. Data drives a lot of, in my world, I think data drives strategic planning, and I think that as we look to develop, a strategic plan, a 3 to 5 year strategic plan or whatever that might be, incorporating this and really looking at how can we impact some of this, and we can't solve all of the problems, but how can we use this information and help it inform us as an organization and as a board, make smart decisions that we could potentially have some impact, positive impact in this space, and brainstorming and partnerships. I'm sitting here immediately thinking, kind of my ding, 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 like what are some partnerships? And knowing that the trades district is in the BUEA and in the zone, and all of what's happening there as well, and sort of that partnership and the idea of entrepreneurial, startups and businesses and small business and potentially small business counseling and things like that. So how can there be partnerships too that strengthen community, because you can never do it alone, right? So yeah, excellent. I look forward to continuing the conversation and using this as a way to help drive planning for the organization and board.
I realize it's tricky, but please don't forget that there are many faith communities located in this district.
Yes.
And that's a place where some conversation and education could happen. The other thing, as I was walking here from my residence, I was thinking about the way my generation would deal with this, and I don't think it works. And Jane and Mary and Heather, Dee, you're going to have to help me think about this in new ways, because I was thinking, oh, let's have a community read and everybody read a book. I don't think that would work. I mean, you might get folks 70 years and older who would agree to that. So what are the ways? I need some help imagining.
Yeah, and I think that we live in a time where, how information is dispersed and received is just completely different. I mean, I'm in my 40s and I know that I am not cool anymore. Like, I don't know how.
We think you are so
Just wait.
I know that there are people, but I know that there are people like
You are so
the way Matthew obtains and receives information is so much different than I do, and even someone who's 10 years younger than me, it's so much different. So we do have to be creative in the ways that we're dispersing, receiving, and gaining knowledge. But yeah.
To Heather's point about, were you gonna say something, Felisa?
Yeah, if I may, while we're on this subject, if we don't have anything else on the agenda.
No, I mean, this is the only thing we're talking about today, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so this kind of ties into what I kind of want to talk about a little bit today. I won't hold you guys long. But everything that all the information that Matthew has presented to us today kind of ties in what I want to speak on. And I don't want to dump on you guys a lot, but I kind of have to. Right now in the zone at my business, Dee and Jane kind of know about this because I had to come to them under fire and so stressed because the project that's going on down the street for me that I am fully in support of and I've been backing since day one, it has kind of overwhelmed me and my business. As we know, the construction on 2nd Street, the building of the new community, it has closed off 2nd Street, which we know it had to for the concerns of the community, safety and all. But it also has closed off Dodge Street as well, which buried my business in. We have gone through diversity of the zone, vandalism, all of the concerns of the zone all the time. We go through that all the time. But now it's the construction, the barriers, and I've been optimistic about this school year, going through the economical inflation, the slow season of the summer. I've still been optimistic of this school year. School year is peak season for us. So with that being said, we have ramped up, ready for this school year. And without notice, without any disregard for the 3 little businesses that's on this street, I went to the gym one day and came back and couldn't get to my house because they buried off both ends of the block with no recognition, no specifications. You can still drive down here, you can walk down here. I had to park my car a block away and walk. So nobody knew if they can come to this business. I went 9 days without making $1. And we had just ramped up in product. So we were ready for the school year, but we couldn't make $1 because nobody knew they could get to my store. Nobody knew they could get in here. And that's one of the reasons I couldn't join this meeting today, because I couldn't sacrifice missing $1 because we haven't made one in days. When I say I am at, the straw has already broke the camel's back, okay? So when I hear us talk about, you know, making these strategic plans to help out the zone, I kind of squirm in my seat, because for me to be a strong supporter of my community, for me to be back in my community, always there, always, I think my community forget about me. I think my community forget that I stand firmly when it comes to, I support this community. I've been here for 19 years and they still forget about me. When I have to come downtown crying to Dee to make sure they can put up a sign that says, I'm still here, I'm still open. This is my peak season. I have not made $1 and school has started. I have to get out and walk around to tell people I'm still open. That hurts when I supported this project. When people tell me, oh, you're gonna make so much money when this project is done, when it's over with, when you're gonna really, you know, this is gonna be good for business. Will I make it? Will I make it through? And this is gonna happen to October 1st. We are barricaded in on both ends. I'm sitting here, we've been open for 2 hours and not a customer. We made $70 last month. I have bills, loans, debt, but I still show up. We're not sitting down and taking it. We're throwing block parties to let people know we're here. So when we sit here and excuse me that I'm getting emotional, but when we sit here and talk about these strategic plans of helping people, please think about the people that, because this wouldn't have happened if this was downtown. This wouldn't have been a mistake like this if it was downtown. Nobody would have had to say, put up a sign and say businesses are still open. Nobody would have had to say, there's businesses down there. Can y'all please leave one of those barriers open so cars can get through? They would have made sure of that.
I hate to say it, but on the Hidden River project, Felisa, the same stuff happened downtown where businesses were barricaded and they had to ask for the signage. And I'm embarrassed and I'm sorry that we weren't ahead of it for you. And I'm also grateful for you just candidly sharing what's going on with this board, because I think that if you haven't been in those day-to-day trenches of trying to run a small business, you don't know how vulnerable you are to what the weather is like that day, whether the students are in town. I mean, you're just vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just makes me ask myself the question, do I keep serving a community that don't serve me?
Felisa, thank you for sharing, and I'll do whatever I can to continue to support you. I know that this time for you is really hard, and it's hard for so many people, myself included. But know that everyone in this room does support you, for sure, and we will do whatever we can, you know, individually as your friends, and you know, as a board, you know, we're trying to move forward, and we appreciate that you're here, willing to speak out and speak your truth, because we can't gild the lily anymore. We can't say nice things all the time about what's going on. We have to be honest, because that's the only way we get anything done, is if we're honest with each other and ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Very powerful, and you know, obviously talking about strategic planning is important, but when you have one of our, community members and a board member dealing with the here and the now, then that is really powerful. And thank you for sharing that story. I mean, I honestly had no idea. I know the construction is going on there, so guess what? I don't go there. And I'm sure that's what a lot of customers are doing, and that just really, yeah, I feel that very personally from your story, so thank you for sharing that with our group. And just know we support you.
All right, so with that, is there anything else that we need to address today? Okay, Felisa, please feel free to reach out to me after this if you want to talk some more. Actually, I'll probably just stop by because I'm going to be in the neighborhood anyway. You're basically my neighbor. So I'll come see you in a bit. But thank you all so much for coming to absorb all this information, this hard work that Matthew's done. We're the city's in their budget season, and I am now in my BUEA budget season. So there will be some things that I'm hoping that we can add to our budget to help some of these situations. And I think that we do have a lot of power when we work together. And
Can I make a request, which I haven't talked to Heather about, but I just think if you're considering new programming, and we know a little more about the problem, about what contributes to challenges in living in the zone. We're hearing directly from Felisa about some challenges related to the built environment and just the environment period in the zone. Before we come with a full budget, could we spend our next meeting or part of it talking about some of the program ideas that you want to lift up for the budget cycle?
I'm going to be giving an abbreviated EZID presentation the next meeting, and we can put that in there as well, as since we'll be talking about how we're making money, we should also be talking about how we can spend our money as well. Yeah.
And I know Dee is an early and organized person. I'm always running later than Dee is, but in olden times, it was like November budget proposal for December approval. So as long as it's in place before the end of the year, I mean, you're fine. So I think if Heather, maybe you guys should talk about that in more detail.
No, I think it's a good discussion. I think it helps to look at what is currently in the budget. I think we did this a little bit last year, do it again, look at what is currently in the budget. Does that need to stay in the budget? Do those programs need to be stayed? Do they need to be adjusted? And what could be added? What could be added programs? And some of that could organically come from conversations. And certainly, we have lived experience on our board here, so I would fully support that. Yeah.
To be continued. All right. Thank you all so much for taking extra time out this month. Appreciate it.